Okay, time to finish up Kiku, or Kikunojo, or Kikunojo of the Lingering Snow, for her final video for this discussion. I do believe that once Yamato's cover story has kind of finished up, I will probably do just like a little recap video in regards to all of the statuses of each of the Scabbards and each of the people who we have seen in these, each of the people that we see that qualify as rulers and leaders throughout the course of this part that we saw in Yamato's cover story, because like as of the time that this is being recorded and going up, we have not seen Kiku yet in the cover story. I'm still really holding out hope that Kiku is going to be in Ringo, but I also have no idea because they put Raizo in charge of Udon, and he really, as far as I can remember, doesn't have much of a connection to Udon, but I could be wrong. We're going to finish up Kiko in regards to her part during the Battle of Onigashima, and then the bits that we have seen afterwards. So, for the Battle of Onigashima, where I last left them was when Kirishiro shows up with his family and all of the ships and everything like that, along with all the other samurai that he had freed from Retsetsu town from the prison gallery. And he shows up and he's explaining to the others, it's like, yeah, well, we figured out his Yasuie's secret message and everything like that. And all of the other Scabbards, including Kiku, are just like glaring at Kinemon for his stupidity actually working out for once. His assumption of the plan actually worked, because Kanjuro thought that it was a different spot for where they were supposed to meet, and therefore sent, Orochi the wrong information. And this is, of course, after it has been revealed that Kanjuro was the traitor. So we have all of them showing up, and this is them on their way to Onigashima. This is, of course, the Straw Hats, Heart Pirates, and Kid Pirates show up. We also have it that Jinbei arrives. We see them all kind of take out some of the different Beast Pirate ships. And kind of during part of this time is Kiku, along with the rest of the Scabbards, and Hirogoro. And I don't remember if there's anybody else that's part of this group, but then they all end up on Law's submarine, and he is going to take them around back of the island. And so they're just going over like the plan for what's going to happen for like their plan for the assault and getting everybody inside. Sicilian, I believe, is also on the submarine. So they're going over all of those plans and everything. And then, of course, they get to the Torii Gate, where they then, the Straw Hats just very easily deal with any of the Beast Pirates that were there. And then they get headed through, and they finally get to Onigashima. And when they get to Onigashima, they have the part of the group that is Kinemon and Denjiro's group that go for the frontal part of the assault, where they're going to work their way around and kind of infiltrate. And that's the part where, like, the Straw Hats are, but Kiku and a bunch of the other Scabbards stay on Law's submarine on the Polar Tang, and he is going to take them around back and then, room and shambles them up onto Onigashima, so that way they can then attack from behind and start with that type of the setup that they're going for. So we see all of them getting there and getting into place. This is, of course, intermixed with them dealing with Big Mom and the Frankie tank, the Brachio tank, and of course Luffy and Zoro starting to cause trouble and chaos in the performance hall and everything else like that. That's all kind of going on at the same time, which Luffy and the others causing that distraction just kind of helps with getting all of the Scabbards and the samurai forces and everything else onto Onigashima, less noticed. And of course, as they are arriving at the back part, at the back door of Onigashima, that is, of course, when Nekomamushi has contacted them and says that they just arrived and that they're planning to meet them at Onigashima, so they're going through that. And then, of course, they get there, and of course, Marco just sky drops Nekomamushi and Izo, and Kiku is just so overjoyed and emotional at getting to see her big brother again, because she has not seen him in 30 years. Oh, well, okay. So Izo has not seen Kiku for 30 years because he aged normally. For Kiku, it has been everything from when he left all the way up to when Odin was executed, and then she jumped ahead 20 years. So it's like, 10 years, which is still a very long time for her for not seeing her brother when they were kind of like joined at the hip for a majority of their lives. But so we have that moment where they are reunited, and of course, Marco says hi, and they're all happy to see Nekomamushi again and everything, because for Kiku, again, it's been quite a while since she's seen Nekomamushi. It's been, well, technically for her, it's only been like a couple of months since she saw Nekomamushi last, but she's still very happy to see him. Same thing with like when she probably got reintroduced to Inarashi and all of that. And so they're going through all of that setup, and they get to the back door, and Kanjuro is there waiting for them with his, drawn up forces that he has made. And what ends up happening is, of course, this is where we start getting into some of the more dramatic fights of this arc, the more emotional fights of this arc. And we have it that the other Scabbards that are there deal with like the beast pirates that Kanjuro brought with him and his drawings. He also explains that like he got injured by Momonosuke because he, Momonosuke attempted to like attempted to attack Kanjuro, and Kanjuro just beat the heck out of him. And of course it's saying, if you don't get in there soon enough, your little prince is going to be executed by Kaido and everything like that. So that's what's going on there, is like that part of the execution is being discussed. So it's like we're kind of cutting back and forth, and this is going on while like Sanji and Shinobu are trying to free Momonosuke from the chains that he's in on the execution platform, just for like some context of what's going on around the same time. But the battle that ends up happening here, or the main more emotional battle, is of course Kanjuro versus Kiku, where Kiku is the one having to fight against Kanjuro. And as is something that has been shown, Kiku is kind of like the little sister figure to all of the Scabbards. They all kind of view her as that. And particularly now, because she is now the physically youngest of all of the Scabbards. I believe I did the math, and I think Kawamatsu is actually technically, chronologically, the youngest of the Scabbards, with like Inarashi and Nekomamushi not too far ahead. But Kiku is now physically the youngest of all the Scabbards. And they always treated her like the little sister of the group. Not that they looked down on her, because they still treated her like a warrior and everything. And even Izo says that she has, near the end of this fight, he says that she has become very strong, a very fine swordsman. So they have the fight between Kiku and Kanjuro. And of course, for Kiku, this is coming on the heels, not like an hour after they found out that Kanjuro has been a traitor to them the entire time that they have known them. And like, Kiku was there when they found Kanjuro, when he joined the group. So she's known him for like a very long time, and for a good majority of her life. So they're going through all of that, and she's having to deal with like that conflicting thing of like, you have been a traitor to us this whole time, and you're the reason Lord Odin is dead. You're the reason Prince Momonosuke has been captured, and all this other stuff. You're part of the reason that all this crap happened to us, to Wano in the first place, because you sided with Orochi when we did nothing but like give you companionship and friendship and, in love and family and all this other stuff, and all you did, you used it as like a part that you played. And we'll have another part of this kind of come to a head later as well in this video. And then of course Kinemon is of course one who does finally finish off Kanjuro, as I said in Kinemon's videos. He's the one who does finally finish him off, but Kiku gets another go at him a little bit later. And during this fight, Kiku does manage to wound Kanjuro very badly, and they believe that she actually kills him, that she like is able to do like a finishing blow on him, which unfortunately she doesn't. They think she does, and that's why like they kind of leave Kanjuro there in the snow, and like Kamen like puts his hat on Kanjuro to like cover up his face, just out of like the what's left of those sparks, the remnants of their friendship that is now completely burned and in tatters. And of course, they believe that Kanjuro has died at that point in time. He hasn't. I've already done this in his video and subsequently talked about it in the other videos as well, with him not being dead yet. But what ends up happening is, of course, now they have to go make their way into Onigashima, into Kaido's actual fortress. They've been in Onigashima for a little bit, but like into the actual fortress, into the Skull Dome. And part of the group is to, where the minks that are the guardians and the musketeers are to go to the roof of the Skull Dome, because that's where they're going to try to take Kaido to fight. Also, that's, they'll have the clearest shot of the moon, so they'll be able to all go Sulong as soon as they want to during the battle, should that be needed, and should the moon be out, which it's supposed to be. It's a full moon, and it's supposed to be a fairly clear night, although like the weather goes through a bunch of different shifts throughout the course of this night because of Big Mom and then like Luffy and Kaido fighting and all that other stuff. So it's like the full moons come and go throughout the course of this night. Come and go, and then come back, and then go again, and then come back throughout the course of this night. So Kiku's group, which is just all the rest of the Scabbards, since they are now actually fully reunited. I consider Shinobu a Scabbard by, an honorary Scabbard, but she's currently off inside of the Skull Dome trying to rescue Momonosuke, because that's been like that's been the task she's been given, and she's going to do her damnedest of it, and I'll go through that when I get to Shinobu's videos. So Kiku and the rest of the Scabbards start making their way through the Skull Dome and through Kaido's, castle and everything. And they make their way to the live stage, and this is literally right after Kaido has beheaded Orochi, and his head, like, they show up, like, very, very quickly after this. I bet they would have gotten a little bit of satisfaction seeing Orochi be decapitated, but they didn't get there in time, and also they would have been like, hey, we should have been the one to do that, not you. He's the one who betrayed us. Also, he's horrible. Or he's the one who destroyed our country. Kaido, I got to him first. Stick around long enough. He has a devil fruit that gives him 8 heads. Maybe you'll get to decapitate him 7 more times tonight. Which does end up being the case, but we'll get to that later. So what ends up happening from here is, of course, the Scabbards burst onto the live stage right after Kaido has decapitated Orochi, and they all just charge at Kaido, weapons out, probably as hockeyed up as they can at that point in time, and just like, jump on his, jump toward his chest and just like stab into him, and he just like falls over the balcony as all of them are like stabbing into him, and like Izo is probably just like firing and unloading into him. Same thing with like Nekomamushi and his Catling gun are just probably just unloading into Kaido as many times as they can, just like the Scabbards just stabbing him as deeply as they can with their swords, and going through and doing that. And they, he falls over the balcony, and he falls into the ground and crashes through the ground and into like the first basement area, and they get, Kaido like shakes them off of him, knocks them off of him, and they fall. And what ends up happening is, from there, it ends up being, Kaido's like, he's like, oh, you're the Scabbards, I remember you. Some of you haven't aged a day, some of you look like you've aged 20 years. What the heck happened? And who the heck is this guy? Point at Izo. No, he doesn't do that. He probably would know who Izo is technically, because he was part of Whitebeard's crew, but maybe not. I don't know. And what ends up happening is, the Scabbards kind of manage to, I think, land a couple more blows on him during this time frame, but then Kaido just goes dragon mode, and they all just like grab onto him or like stab into him as he like, goes through the floor and bursts through the ceiling of the Skull Dome and up onto the top of the Skull Dome, destroying his own roof in the process, because reasons. And they, they get up onto, Kaido carries them all up onto the top of the roof. This then just results in, like, he's on one side, like Jack, and a bunch of his beast pirates have gotten up there. One of the numbers is up there. The minks are all there. The minks all go Sulong. The Guardians and the Musketeers all go Sulong, and they start dealing with Jack and his forces, and they just wipe the floor with them this time, which is great in my opinion. And then also Inarashi and Nekomamushi, like, they wipe the floor with Jack at that point in time. And the rest of the Scabbards are just kind of watching while this is going on, but it's like, so they're parts of Kaido's forces are being dealt with, which is still useful. It's getting more of them out of the way, but Kaido's just kind of, standing back and watching as this is happening. And then after Jack's forces have been taken down and Jack's been badly injured, Kaido, kind of sends them off, and then he gets ready to fight the Scabbards, and we go full on into the battle between Kaido and the Scabbards. And, all of them are unleashing their biggest attacks at him, trying to just land as much damage on him as possible. And, I mean, to their credit, they are landing damage on him. It's just that, as of course we know, Kaido's health bar is just really, really, really freaking big. And then if he drinks, he, replenishes it. Plus, we see throughout the course of the whole Onigashima section, that could just be, its own arc in and of itself, in all honesty. Just, all of that with going through and Kaido just getting so much damage taken, but it just takes so long just to wear him down, type of a thing, with everything that we see. But the Scabbards are managing to cause some damage, and of course he's releasing his Boro breath at them, and is doing all of that stuff, and just dealing with a bunch. They're all doing damage, but they're also all taking damage in the process from having to dodge the Boro breaths and the other. His lightning abilities and the wind scythe that he does. I don't remember if Kiku ends up landing any type of huge attack on him. I honestly don't remember. But a bunch of the Scabbards, who all kind of have swords, they all, Kinemon, Ashura, Denjiro, and Inarashi all go into the two-sword Odin style that they do, that's an homage to Odin. They manage to, actually kind of make Kaido's old scar from Odin bleed, which is quite impressive given everything that we know. And so we kind of see that, and Kiku is managing, as part of these groups, she is managing to cause damage to him as well. And then of course Kaido does his giant wind scythe blast that results in one of the wind scythe slicing off Kiku's left arm, and which then falls through the floor, because it falls from the battlefield on the ceiling and falls into the with the entertainment hall live stage floor, which just makes Zoro very mad, because he realizes that it's Kiku's arm, and Robin realizes what it is too, and they're all just mad about this as well. But we cut back up to the roof, and Kaido kind of pauses the battle just to kind of see what's going to happen here, because I've stated this before, this shows a little bit of respect that Kaido has for the Scabbards. They have managed to wound him a bit, and kind of, bring forth his PTSD of dealing with Odin, and having that kind of right of victory kind of snatched away from him because of Higurashi. But, so Kiku gets her left arm sliced off by one of his wind scythes, and, her brother is, bandaging up the arm and everything, and then Kinemon just comes over, lights his sword on fire, and Kiku has, a, cloth or something in her mouth to bite down on so she doesn't bite her tongue or break her teeth. And then Kinemon just cauterizes the wound then and there. And they ask if she can continue. And she's like, I can. And she steps back up, and she's got her sword in her hand, and she's ready to keep going. And Kaido, praises them for this. He praises her for this. Well, she doesn't pick up her sword. Her sword fell through with her hand, but she picks up a different sword, because it's just kind of littered with the part of the battlefield is just littered with swords from the Beast Pirates. But she picks up another sword and kind of praises her for this, and praises them for their determination in this. Which, I guess is something coming from Kaido. I've harped on this moment in like all of the other Scabbard videos and in the other ones that I'll get to, where I talk about Onigashima. In this moment, it's just like, it shows their determination, because to be fair, if I lost an arm, I'm like, no, I'm out. But I don't think I'd be putting myself in this situation to begin with. I don't have that type of backbone or that type of courage type of a thing. I would support the people who have the type of courage to stand up for this type of thing. But it's like, yeah, I don't think I have that type of courage. But good on you to the people who do. So Kaido praises him, and then he shifts into his human form so he can try to put this to an end. He's like, okay, you've gained my respect enough. I'm going to shift into my human form instead of my dragon form to take you out. And the battle continues, and we cut away from the group for a while. We cut away from the roof for a while. And we finally, when we get back up there to see what's going on, all the Scabbards are incapacitated. They're all just beaten and so badly injured. And this is when Kid, Law, Zoro, Killer, and Luffy all finally make it to the roof. And, you know, they're all just like, Luffy, Zoro, and Kid, and Law have been around the Minks and been around the Scabbards for a little while at this point in time, and, you know, care about them. Luffy and Zoro possibly a little bit more than Law, given how much of a stick in the mud he can be. I love Law, but he can be a stick in the mud when it comes to dealing with his own emotions and admitting his own emotions. And so, you know, Luffy goes over and he talks to Kinemon, and like, he just walks right past to Yonko. One of the best disrespectful moments in all of One Piece. And he, you know, he has Law send all of the Scabbards, teleport them down to safety, which Law does. Begrudgingly, he's like, well, I was going to do it anyway. And then he like shifts them all downstairs using his room in shambles to get them off the battlefield and into one of the treasure rooms. And then those 5 then go off to fight Big Mom and Kaido multiple times. And from there, we have it that they end up in this treasure room, and there is this mysterious figure that shows up and starts tending to them that they don't really see, but like, we see it, and then later on it's confirmed that it is Hiyori, that is the person there that is like bandaging all of their wounds and, you know, all of that stuff, disinfecting them to bandage them up, different things like that, doing as much basic first aid as she can given the circumstances. By the way, Hiyori, like, sneaking through Onigashima during all of this stuff and not being noticed, besides this, and then when she interacts with Orochi, she rolled, like, I don't know, I don't remember, I don't play D&D, so I don't know how much that is on, like, a, you know, D20 for, like, she rolled great for her stealth ability during this time frame. She rolled perfectly for being able to sneak all the way through Onigashima and not be noticed. So she, you know, gives them first aid, and then she kind of disappears, and then they show back, and then they wake up again a little bit later. And, like, so the mysterious figure is gone, so they're like, well, what the heck was that? And so I was like, I don't know. Danjiro probably figured out that it was her, but he doesn't want to reveal that to the other ones yet. And so they're like, okay, well, we got to get back out to the battlefield. We got to keep going. We got to keep fighting and everything. We got to find, you know, Lord Momonosuke. And that is when the door opens, and lo and behold, standing there appears to be Odin himself. And they're all just like really happy to see him, because he's like, you know, Lady Toki found me, and she sent, you know, Toki found me and she sent me into the future so I could fight alongside you guys. Then where were you 3 weeks ago? Type of a thing. Why did you not reveal yourself to us 3 weeks ago? And of course, he's like, it's me, and, you know, all this other stuff. And they're just like so happy to see him. And then it is Ashura Doji and Raizo that's like, this is not Odin. This is a fake Odin. And I get how Ashura, who's like one of the ones who had to wait for 20 years and probably had, you know, various, you know, dreams and hallucinations of like Odin coming back and everything else like that. So he's like, this is a fake Odin. It's not real. And then I don't know how Raizo does it, but maybe it's just because he's a ninja. I don't know. And, you know, Kiku is, of course, very happy that they think that this is Odin, and then, Ashura and Raizo reveal that it's not, it's a fake Odin, and, like, they slice at it to reveal that it is, one of Kanjuro's ink drawings. And this is where it, of course, the ink drawing is, like, chastising them and, like, all of that. Like, Kanjuro, like, is like, yeah, this is fake. What the F is wrong with you people? And then this leads to him revealing that the Odin has explosives on it. And this is where Ashura runs in, grabs him, and then jumps kind of over the balcony, and that's where the explosion happens. And this is unfortunately where Ashura dies, but manages to save the other Scabbards from the blast. And from there, it ends up being, okay, well, now we're just extra angry. And, Kiku is just extra, like, frick, I thought I really killed Kaido. So she's feeling bad about this at that point in time. She's like, I'm sorry, I thought I actually killed Kanjuro. I thought I dealt a finishing blow. And it's just like, it's okay. He tricked all of us again. It's fine. We'll go find him and deal with this. So Kanjuro, of course, also says that he's going to go try to find Momonosuke before he succumbs to his mortal wound, so he can then kill Momonosuke. This, of course, leads to all the other Scabbards are like, yeah, no, we're going to go try to save our prince. And they are then running through Onigashima. They end up coming across Orochi, where they all then end up beheading him again. So he is now finally down to just one head at that point in time. And then Inarashi and Nekomamushi kind of break off. Inarashi stays to fight against Jack. Nekomamushi heads off because he ends up going to go deal with Perospero. I still really hope he killed Perospero. And Kawamatsu and Izo end up going back to the live stage. And then it's Kinemon and Kiku that end up trying to make their way to where Momonosuke and Shinobu are, which they do find him. They do find them. And, like, this is, like, the last time that, like, Kiku and Izo are kind of together. And, he's like, when they're running, he's like, do you think you can continue? And she's like, oh, yes, of course I can. This is nothing in compared to what it's, this is nothing more than it is compared to the pain that I felt after you left Wano. And I love that, just like that jab at Izo. It wasn't his fault, Kiku. It's like, he could have come back. Yes, he could have come back. That is very, very true. Izo very easily could have come back to Wano. And I talked about that in the Izo videos where I'm like, is it possible that, like, during the 20 years when they were all, sent into the future, that maybe he did go to Wano and kind of found out something of what happened, interacted with Suru or something, and had that information? I talked about that already. It's like a what if scenario. If he found out about that and he's like, well, I can't find any of the others and I'm not really doing a lot of good here, so I'll go back to Whitebeard, type of thing. But, like, yeah, I like how she just, like, jabs at it, Izo. Unfortunately, this basically ends up being kind of like the last conversation that they have. And Izo, of course, apologizes for abandoning her without saying anything, and she kind of forgives him. And, like, earlier they had the conversation where it's just like, and I'll tell you all about my adventures when this is all finished, which, of course, we never get to, and I'll talk about that when I get to current stuff, more current things for Kiku. And so we have that. And, of course, Kinemon and Kiku end up finding where Momonosuke is with Shinobu and Odin, a.k.a., well, not Odin, but Yamato at that point in time, finds them. Yamato, I think, has gone off to do something else at this point in time, but Shinobu and Momonosuke are there, and then I think this is also, because part of this corresponds with when Luffy gets defeated by Kaido, because Kaido's going to show up here very shortly, is part of what happens during this. So they find where Momonosuke is, and he's very happy to see them. And then the fake Odin shows up, and then Kiku and Kinemon basically have to explain to Shinobu and Momonosuke, who are now looking at Odin thinking that it's the real Odin, and they're like, no, it's not the real Odin, he's a fake, he's a drawing by Kanjuro. And, this leads then to Kiku trying to fight the Kanjuro Odin again. Unfortunately, in this time around, he is much more willing to use dirty tricks, along with basically, manipulating her, emotional manipulation, where he's just like, you wouldn't hurt your Lord Odin. You adore him so much. And he's like, reminding her of like all the, that he took her and her brother in, and like all this other stuff. And it makes Kiku understandably hesitate at this point in time. I mean, like, if you're someone who's faced with like the person that you have looked up to so much in your whole life, even if you know it's a fake version of them, that would kind of be a harder thing to have to deal with, particularly when they sound just like them and they're making you remember all of this other stuff. It would be a very hard thing to get through, to get past. And unfortunately, this means that Kiku ends up getting stabbed in the abdomen. The Kanjuro Odin stabs her in the abdomen. This is not her abdomen. Her abdomen is down here. This is a much worse place to get stabbed. Stabs her there, and she falls to the ground. And this is when Kinemon takes over the battle and fights against the fake Odin and finally defeats Kanjuro. And, the Kanjuro does continue to, like, mock Kiku while he's doing this. And then, Kinemon steps up and, Kinemon steps up and finally defeats Kanjuro, which I talked about in his video. Both Kanjuro's and Kinemon's videos. So we have that. And then he's like, Kinemon comes over and he's kind of like holding Kiku. Because she's like losing consciousness, and she's apologizing to him for that the snow melted. That she's apologizing because a melting snow surely meant that dawn was approaching, that like her death might be one of those things that is meaning that dawn is approaching, that this dawn of the new world, this dawn of a new era that they have been waiting for is coming. This then delves into Kiku just becomes unconscious and is just kind of like laying there on the ground while Kaido shows up, and then Shinobu has to save Momonosuke, and then Kaido attacks Kinemon. So that's just kind of all going on in the background, and Kiku's just kind of unconscious while all of that's happening. I think we see her in some of the wide shots of the room when that stuff's happening, but she is like unconscious and bleeding out, which is not good. And then we cut to when Usopp shows up, along with, I think he has Hamlet with him. And they show up, and they're there to get Kinemon and Kiku. And they're both saying, no, take the other one and leave me behind. And then this is when Usopp gets a really good moment, in all honesty. I wish Usopp had gotten a couple of more good moments during Onigashima, but they had so many other characters to focus on at that point in time. But he's like, survival, it's like his beliefs on survival, that like you should try to survive no matter the cost or what others thought of it. And because like for the samurai, it's like very much like this, dying for honor is a very important thing. Starving yourself for honor, or doing all this other stuff for honor is a very important thing. And I'm not saying that it's not, and Usopp understands that, but he's also like, fucking fight to survive, people. What is wrong with you? Type of a moment, which is really good. And so he's like getting Kiku and Kinemon, trying to get them so they can get out of there. Unfortunately, this is when a bunch of the Beast Pirates show up, and they start trying to kill all three of them or capture them. And this is when Izo shows up, and this is the last time that Izo and Kiku are going to see each other while Izo is alive. And she tries to talk to him, but Izo tells Usopp to get those two out of there while he deals with the remaining enemies. And he's like, okay. And Usopp's kind of like, oh my god, you know who I am. But like they're getting Kinemon and Kiku out of there, and they're kind of like laid across the back of like Hamlet, because he's the giant, he's the giraffe smile user. So he has like room on his back for the two of them and Usopp to stay there. And so this is like Kiku tries to talk to her brother, but that doesn't happen. And like Izo says that they must survive if they truly believed in Luffy. That like, because like this has kind of been like after Momonosuke has made the announcement that like Luffy is not dead and that he's coming back, type of a thing, that he's not fully defeated by Kaido. Yeah, he lost that round, but he's gonna get up and fight again. And of course he does. And like, I think while this is going on, Kaido is fighting Yamato on the roof. Yamato showed up to be like a stopgap measure, so Kaido doesn't just go on another rampage through Onigashima, is what's going on there. So basically this is where they get where during all this time frame while we're seeing the Luffy battles and different stuff like that, Usopp and Hamlet with Kiku and Kinemon on their backs are trying to get on Hamlet's back, are trying to get them to safely, but they keep running into other enemies or the fire or different things like that and having to like work their way through that. Eventually they do manage to get back to the live stage floor where of course Chopper is, and they are able to, after Raizo and Jinbei use Raizo's locked up water to put out the fire throughout Onigashima, they then get down to the live stage, and Chopper starts looking over Kinemon and Kiku along with all of the other injured people, which is so many injured people that he has to deal with. And then the next time that we see, the next bit that we get here is that that involves Kiku, besides her just like getting medical treatment, is Nekomamushi has like kind of gone out and he's like seeing that Luffy has defeated Kaido and that Momonosuke has managed to land Onigashima safely and it didn't destroy the flower capital and everything else like that. And he makes that announcement, and Kiku is just, she's kind of still knocked out at this point in time, but like they're there for that announcement. And then it is then time for them to go to the flower capital. And this is where, it's Momonosuke's return to the flower capital. It is, Hiyori's return to the flower capital finally as herself, not as Komurasaki. We have, a bunch, the rest of the Scabbards that have survived along with Shinobu are there, and they're, entering the flower capital to the citizens of Wano that are all there for the fire festival, and they're just like, all of the citizens are like, what the F is going on? Why is the dragon pink, not blue? Oh my god, it's Lord Momonosuke. Oh my god, who is that? And like they're just recognizing out all of the different Scabbards and everything as they are entering the flower capital. And Momonosuke is like being declared as shogun. And going through all of that. I don't know if you can hear her snoring in the background. But you can like, all of that amazement is there, and like all of that joy and relief of like Kaido is gone and Orochi is gone and the beast parrots have been defeated and all of that stuff. So it's just like all of that great bit there where we see them. And, so they get all that amazing entrance, and like Kiku is like on top of like Nekomamushi's shoulder because, she had a lot of injuries plus lost an arm, so he's like kind of like, I think she's like laying on his shoulder, which is just kind of cute in my opinion. And like it just kind of calls back to like the relationship that they've had as like, kind of, cat brother and sister, for that regard. So they go through all of that, and of course, Momonosuke makes the announcement that Kaido's rule is over and everything, and they go through all of that. And that, they go through all of that part there. And they're all just so overwhelmed with joy that all of them are just like crying with joy and relief that this plan worked. Because if it didn't, they'd probably be dead. And then we cut to the week later, which is when, Zoro and Luffy finally wake up, and, they're all staying in the castle, and of course Kiku is there. And sometime during this time frame, she would have been told that Izo died, because probably they were like searching through Onigashima and finding the bodies. We know that they found the bodies of Izo and Ashura Doji along with their weapons, so that way they could be put to rest and everything in Ringo. And there would have been others probably from their forces that died as well, because that's part of the shrine that they want to build in Ringo. And this is of course where we get where Kiku was just kind of hanging out with all the Straw Hats and everything like that. And then of course it gets to where it's time to all go take baths. And of course Nami asks Yamato if Yamato wants to join them in the baths, and it's just like, no, it's not mixed baths. And then Kiku is just like, oh, I'll join you in the girls' bath and everything, which kind of just leaves Nami confused. And then of course we have the whole bath scene because reasons. This is, I know, one of the issues that people had, because like, while this is all going on, Kinemon and Kawamatsu are off in the Ringo region, and they are kind of, laying to rest, Izo and Ashura Doji, and yet the other Scabbards are not there. That very specifically Kiku is not there for her own brother's kind of burial type of a thing. And it just seems to be more of like just like why she's not there, I don't know. But we have back in the Flower Capital, we have Kiku and all the girls do, the bath and everything like that. So that's just like this nice scene there where she's sitting there talking with Hiyori while they're all in the bath. And of course Kiku, of course, now she's down in arms, so we see all the bandages and everything else there. And of course then we just kind of have it that it's time for this other festival type thing to happen. And this is like the Fire Festival Part 2 type of continuation that is all the celebration. Now that Zoro and Luffy are awake, so they can continue the big celebration and everything. So they go through that. And they have all of that big celebration there, and like Kiku's there and partying, enjoying the celebration. And then we have it that Aramaki attacks. Now, I don't recall Kiku being involved in this battle. Most of the other ones are. Denjiro, Shinobu, Raizo, Inarashi, and Nekomamushi are there, as is as is Yamato and Momonosuke. But Kiku was not part of that battle. Now, I don't know if it's just like, you're still injured, you're still getting used to not being able to, you still got to get used to fighting again with your other arm. So maybe wait this one out type of a thing, and we'll go deal with this. Thankfully, Shanks shows up and is able to scare the F out of Ryokogyu and send him away. But Kiku is there while Raizo and Shinobu are being treated by Tristan and Miyagi, going through all of that. And then, of course, then we have it that, then they reveal who Sukiyake really is. And... Kiku's just kind of there as like some of this other conversation is happening, and like she's probably, she spent a decent amount of time around Tenguyama, because she kind of stayed in Amagasa Village when they first kind of got back from when they first returned to Wano. She kind of was like put in charge of like kind of technically babysitting Momonosuke and Tama. So that kind of meant that she was like around Tenguyama, so maybe she figured it out anyway. Also, they all just kind of figured out, except for Kinemon, that he was Sukiyake anyway. So from there, we get into kind of the last concrete information that we have about Kiku. So after that, it's now time for the Straw Hats to leave. And that this leads into when, I think when Kinemon and Momonosuke are like kind of running through the Flower Castle, the castle in the Flower Capital, trying to figure out where the heck all of Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hats are, and then like they keep running into the other Scabbards, and it's just like, and like Hiyori and Toka And they're like, Toko, and it's just like, oh yeah, they all said their goodbyes and are heading to the port so they could leave. And I think we see Kiku during part of this. So they supposedly said, goodbye to, her as well and everything. And then, of course, they just all head off. And then this leads, of course, to Kanebon and Momonosuke. And then Yamato kind of, more Kanebon and Momonosuke than Yamato being angry about, like, they left and they didn't say goodbye. So they're, like, chasing after them, which is just funny. Which, of course, leads into the great scene that I'll talk about when I talk about Momonosuke, where he's saying goodbye to the Straw Hats, and where they give him the Jolly Roger that has the Straw Hats flag on it to then hang in the Flower Capital to mark Wano as Luffy's territory and everything. So that's technically the last time that we have seen Kiku. I still really feel that Kiku should be made the daimyo of Ringo. Or at the very least that's where she should be. Even if she's maybe not the daimyo of Ringo, maybe at least she's part of like the guardian of the cemetery or something like that. One of the ones that guards the cemetery. Because then at least she can be kind of near where her brother is. Near where Izo is. I did make the comment that like I liked the idea that maybe Marco had like a journal from Izo and he gave that to Kiku or something like that. Would just be a great way. So that way, like I would have loved it if Marco would have stayed behind for a little while and like talked with Kiku about all of the different adventures that Izo got to go on, because Marco would have been there for some of them. And could have like told Kiku about them. That would have been a great thing. I understand that Marco had to get back to Sphinx Island, but like something would have been nice there. We'll see. That again, that might just be like an SBS question that gets answered at some point in time. I need to figure out how to freaking send an SBS question to Oda and have it be something in regards to like Kiku and Izo related question or something. Maybe I'll attempt that. I don't know. But so they like go through all of that, and again, the cover page story for Yamato, we haven't gotten to Kiku in the cover page series yet, unfortunately. I know that we saw like Hiyori earlier on in it when Hiyori was like making Yamato lunch, and some people thought that was Kiku. It's just like, no. First of all, has 2 arms. Second of all, that is Hiyori, not Kiku. Type of thing. So it's just like, I don't know what they're going to have Hiyori do. I really hope that she is, that like the others have all shown up so far. A good chunk of them have shown up so far in the cover page series. For Yamato, we just haven't seen Kiku yet. I guess it's possible they make her the daimyo of, the dingo. They're going to turn her into a dog. No. Make her the daimyo of the Hakumai region as guests. I guess also a possibility there. That could work as well. Maybe, but besides that, I really don't know what they're going to intend, what Oda's going to do with her. I want her to show back up again. Obviously, I would like it if a lot of the Scabbards showed back up again along with Momonosuke and stuff, but that's what we have here for this. So I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!